Let me bring in Alanna O'Malley, a professor of global governance and wealth at Erasmus University, Rotterdam. Alanna, big words from the UN chief, but what else can he do at this point? I mean, he's the head of the UN. This is 80 years since the UN was created. What else can he do?
So we've seen Secretary General Guterres really run the gauntlet of all the different options he has had before him. He has even brought a resolution to the Security Council 2 years ago under Article 99 of the Charter, which is where the Secretary General can bring directly something to the Security Council for action. But each time he does this, we see that there's a pushback, especially from the United States at the Security Council, and also you have this kind of Israeli disregard for the UN system and a cynicism with which they treat even the kind of basic terms of diplomatic conduct. So the UN is using the strongest rhetoric that it can to describe the humanitarian catastrophe. You see them kind of really rolling out a lot of really powerful statements about what should be done. It's not just Guterres. We have people like Francesca Albanese, who has been incredibly outspoken, and many other UN people who are in positions of authority at the UN. And they're really trying to whip up public sentiment to also keep public opinion focused and to keep public opinion behind the solidarity for the Palestinian people. And so the UN is doing a good job with that. But these are still kind of actions that are in the abstract, right? And so the question is really, what can the UN do practically? And for that, we're looking again at the General Assembly, right? So what more can be done with these resolutions? Can they be implemented? Can we get states to actually leverage their influence on Israel in abiding by the terms of those resolutions?
Now, there have been a number of UN human rights experts. They've called for the use of the so-called Uniting for Peace resolution. This dates back to 1950, and basically this is a way of bypassing the Security Council because you've got that US veto, right? But with this one, these human rights experts argue that the UN General Assembly can actually vote to send a peacekeeping force to be deployed into Gaza. Would that be a possibility, do you think?
So there's two issues with this. The first one is that there is no peace to keep in Gaza now at the moment, at least until we see how or whether the terms of this peace agreement can be actually implemented. So peacekeeping force traditionally has to hold a neutral position between two warring parties. And what we see in Gaza is woeful destruction of one population, the Palestinians, by the Israeli military. So there isn't a peace to keep where you could insert a traditional peacekeeping force as envisioned under the Charter. The second thing, of course, is that you would need countries to not just agree this resolution, but to actually provide the troops and the resources to enter into Gaza and to perform the peacekeeping operation. Now, you might be able to gather those from the top, troop contributing countries to the UN are largely nations from the global south who are outspoken in their solidarity for Palestine and who very much support this cause. But the next issue is of course, access. And this is a practical issue, right? You need to have, theoretically, the agreement of the host state in order to bring in a peacekeeping force. In this case, you would have the agreement of the Palestinians, of course, but they don't control the borders. So then you're on to the practical part of, again, getting the Israeli government to allow troops to enter. And right now, they won't even allow food and basic medical supplies to enter the strip. So there are serious political, strategic and tactical reasons why a peacekeeping force at this moment, even if it could be gotten through the General Assembly under Uniting for Peace, may not actually provide a solution.
So let's look at the judicial side, though. You've got South Africa with this case at the ICJ claiming that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. We have a UN commission that's saying the same thing, that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. The ICJ even issued an interim ruling telling Israel to do everything it can to stop the genocide in Gaza, or to stop acts of genocide from happening in Gaza, rather. So why is the ICJ unable to put an end to it?
Well, actually, firstly, it's not just South Africa, it's a majority of states who are behind this case in particular, which is the genocide case against Israel at the ICJ. And the ICJ has come back with two sets of provisional orders in March and in May 2024, where they ordered the Israeli military to halt the military campaign in Gaza. And unfortunately, as we have seen, the Israeli military and the Israeli government have shown complete disregard for international standards and for international law, international humanitarian law in this regard. And they haven't halted the campaign. So the ICJ is now in the process of deciding the case on its merits. And this is the difficult part, right? So the provisional measures were issued as a kind of an urgent response to the humanitarian catastrophe. And a lot of the case presented by South Africa was based on reports from UN agencies which pointed to the ways in which the conditions of life of the Palestinians and their right to self-determination had been absolutely disrupted and if not completely suppressed by the Israeli action. So they are looking now on the intent, and that's the hard part about proving genocide legally, is that you have to prove that it is intended by the state who is accused of perpetrating a genocide, that they actually want to obliterate a specific ethnic group or a specific people, a nation. And this is the part that the ICJ is deliberating over now. That's what they call the merits case, and that will be decided, we hope, in the next year or so. And that is then the official ruling from the ICJ. So then it's a difficulty for international law, because on the one hand, you have flagrant abuse of international law to an unprecedented level, not just by Israel, but by other states in other conflicts recently. And at the same time, you have a lot of the international community and a lot of the Global South in particular trying to retool that system to make it more able to address this case in particular and to make it deliver more equitable and just solutions overall. So it's a real moment of tension both ways.
Alanna O'Malley, thank you for your expertise for now.